we're going to start with probably the biggest news of the week. Joe Biden has a running mate. And unless you've been living under a rock, you would know, that running mate is Kamala Harris. So, we're going to talk about her in two separate sections. We're going to talk about her record, both the positives and the negatives, because she has some good stuff. The three of us have relatively not really kind opinions about Kamala Harris, but we're going to be as objective as we can. And then the second section, we're going to talk about how she will, what she brings to the campaign, how she can potentially help or hurt the Biden campaign. So let's first start talking about her race for the 2020 Democratic nomination. She started out running she started out running as a lefty. She in the first debate, she touted that she was the first senator to sign on to Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill, and she ran on her progressive record as a prosecutor, or her self-described progressive record as a prosecutor. And then and she showed promise early on, because in that first debate, she absolutely destroyed Joe Biden. And it shot her to a place of, I think, if I remember looking back at the Real Clear Politics average of polling, and I think at one point she was the front runner, even for a split second, kind of where Elizabeth Warren was a little bit later. She had beaten Joe Biden, but for just a split second, then she started falling again. But as we all know, she ended up dropping out in December due to lack of fundraising, due to she wasn't able to raise money, and that fall can be attributed to two things. At least I attribute it to two things. It is she kind of waffled on Medicare for All, because it wasn't just her attack on Biden that shot her up in the polls. It was her standing with Bernie on Medicare for All. And Medicare for All was always has been pretty popular within the last couple of years. But she started backing off of that. She infamously had a fundraiser in the Hamptons, and she was saying that I'm not so sure about Medicare for All. I have a lot of problems with Bernie's plan. And then also the thing that the mainstream media never talks about is Tulsi Gabbard kneecapping her campaign in the next round of debates after the debate in which she did destroy Joe Biden. The mainstream media likes to attribute Kamala's decline in the polls mostly she couldn't find her footing between progressive and more moderate. So AKA she waffled a lot. And and the same can be said about Pete Buttigieg. I mean, he started as a lefty, but by the end he was pretty clearly a centrist. He started out his campaign arguing for Medicare for All, saying Medicare for All was the common ground position between what we have now and a nationalized healthcare system, a fully nationalized healthcare system. But then he ended his campaign and spent most of it, being one of the fiercest critics of Medicare for All in the primary field. So we're going to talk about her record, because through the context of the debates, I guess I could say, because Tulsi Gabbard, what she touched on that really kneecapped Kamala's campaign was her criminal justice record as a prosecutor. As a prosecutor, and also a DA, Attorney General of California. And she touched on a lot of things, including, she most infamously, she withheld evidence that would have saved a man from death row until courts ordered her to release it. She didn't release it because of some bullshit technicality. She was very heavy on with truancy laws, anti-truancy laws, and she did not push to get rid of cash bail, which has a very bad like effect on poor people and, almost defaultly, minorities, because, the poor people are disproportionately Black and brown. And also talked about, what else did she talk about? She just talked about like her, like her like her big oppositional stance to marijuana, and she laughed about it as recently as 2014 when she was asked about like legalizing it. So like there's a whole bunch of stuff that she covered there, and like we can get more into details about like the negatives of her record as a prosecutor, but she also doesn't have the best record as a senator either. So I get your thoughts.
Definitely. I had a conversation about with a friend of ours about that, and definitely would like to get into some bills that a friend thought were helpful to prove she changed, but like get into the context of what the actual bills actually did for the criminal justice cause.
All right. So what were those things that you're talking about?
There was one with the mandatory minimums, the criminal justice oversight bill. With the mandatory minimums, while it does lower things, it does not address the racial disparities in sentencing, which is the main problem with the mandatory minimums.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's just, it doesn't get to the heart of the problem.
Yeah, that's the thing about her. She does a lot of half measures to, I guess, like make it fluff her record to make it look like she's on the right side.
Definitely. Yeah, and then she had a bill with an oversight committee for criminal justice. But the key word, it was just like Kerner Commission 2.0. It had no real power to enforce anything.
Now, what was the, can you explain what the Turner Commission was?
Kerner Commission?
Yeah, I made my
it was
heard you.
After the civil rights movement.
Right.
It was a commission to kind of like give advice to the president and government officials about how to address like racial inequity, but it ultimately failed because it had no power to enforce its rulings. And it was at the vice of a government official, so they could take it or leave it.
Yeah. One thing that she did very recently that I think is absolutely unforgivable, like it was something that she voted against in the Senate, and it doesn't have to do with criminal justice reform, but I still think it's a very important issue. Bernie had created an amendment in the Senate, and there was also an amendment like it in the in Congress or in the House that would cut the military budget by 10%. And this is why I was kind of enthusiastic about having Karen Bass be the VP, because she was, out of all of the congresswomen on Joe Biden's short list, she was the only one who voted for that 10% cut. Kamala Harris voted against it. And that is blatant corruption. Even some of the people who voted for the 10% cut got, a couple $100,000 from the defense industry. And, so like they had to like take the brave position of voting for that 10% cut. And 10% is very basic. That's like 70 billion. That's like 70 billion when we increase it by over 100 billion over the course of the Trump presidency.
Yep. We could cut our military in half, our military budget in half, and we would still, by far and away, have the most heavily funded military on the planet.
Yep, definitely. That 10% would cover the basics of free college for all. That's 70 billion.
Yeah.
I think I saw something like Medicare for all, free college, all of these plans that, Democrats and Republicans were both, touting as, too expensive to pay for, could all be paid for by half of the military budget.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's like, it's also weird because like we never have the money. Like we never have the money for all of these things that actually help the American people, that the overwhelming majority of American people support. Like even with Medicare for all, it was revealed that nearly 70% of Americans support it, including almost half of Republican voters support Medicare for all. The Democratic support for Medicare for all amongst voters is well into the 80s and 90s. It's just like, but we don't have money for that. But we do have money for the Iraq War. We do have
Right.
money for all the
Yeah.
corporate bailouts, and
And not to mention, how many trillions of dollars has Congress, found in the budget to deal with this coronavirus pandemic? I mean, I think
Yeah,
2 weeks it was
barrel-
like 4 trillion.
yeah.
I don't know how much it is now, but it's bullshit that the money isn't there, plain and simple.
Yeah. So yeah, main point is voting against a 10% cut to the military budget is absolutely unforgivable. People who voted for like Trump's military increases over the years, like Elizabeth Warren, she voted for this 10% cut, and so there's that, and like, but there's also some positives to her record, even like, and some oddly like contradictory to like the negatives of her record as well, because like we talked about her like being hard with like drug offenses and like that sort of thing, and also like and also the death penalty, but back when she was first elected to be San Francisco's district attorney in 2004, a cop was killed, and at the cop's funeral, and Kamala Harris was in attendance, both like Dianne Feinstein, who is still a senator, of like the senior senator from California today, advocated for the death penalty, and also for this guy, and also like publicly slammed Kamala Harris for not pushing for the death penalty. And also same with Barbara Boxer, who's the former senator from California, and Kamala Harris now holds her seat. But Kamala Harris would not pursue the death penalty, and she was ultimately successful. And it's like like the guy who killed the cop was not put on death row. And that's
definitely. But I say it was more so a political move because this person who happened to kill the cop was a gang member. Yeah, that's it was in a New York Times article I mentioned. Yeah, it was a gang member. I forgot the name, but the thing was like, it was to help like more so. I feel like it was used, like the sad story of the cop being killed was used to like push a narrative of this like rampant war on police. Then in reality has no factual basis.
Yeah. Right. So Kamala Harris so she was right on that, to fight so the guy wouldn't receive the death penalty. But then, what was it? There was a bill, I forget the name of it, that was proposed that would have eliminated the death penalty entirely in California, and she fought tooth and nail against that.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's again like she does a lot of these half measures where she tries to like give a performance as if she's progressive, and then it caters to where all the money is, caters to the center.
Yeah.
Yep. Caters to the police unions. It caters to all the corporate donors she has.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Another I guess another negative of her record is that I've talked to numerous people about like, oh, she was super tough with marijuana laws, and the excuse is, well, like police, they don't make the laws, they just enforce them, she's just doing her job. Well, people don't tend to not realize how much power a prosecutor has when it comes to like what cases they pursue, and what the obvious thing to point to, like in the case of Kamala Harris, is that she chose to pursue those drug offense cases, but who she didn't pursue? Steve Mnuchin. She had the opportunity to prosecute him, for all the he was taking part in all the corruption that was happening leading up to the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession, and she had the opportunity to prosecute him. But Steve Mnuchin was a Democratic donor at the time, and he donated money to her office, and she didn't prosecute. So that's definitely another negative. But
I believe she was the only major Democrat in the race to receive funding from Mnuchin.
Yeah, and exactly, Harry. In addition to that, she refused to prosecute a person who was accused of a sex scandal in the Catholic Church.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you're gonna say, "Oh, she didn't have a choice; she was just enforcing the law," where's her enforcing the law in financial crimes, white-collar crimes? Where's she enforcing the law for sexual abuse?
And also, I mean, this is kind of a side point. This is just kind of a side point on, the point that police only enforce the laws or whatever. You know, I mean, I'm willing to bet that more people jaywalk than smoke marijuana, and I'm willing to bet that far fewer people receive any sort of penalty for jaywalking than
Yep.
possessing marijuana, and they both amount to much the same thing in terms of threat to the community or whatever.
Jaywalking is more dangerous.
So I mean, yeah, obviously, right? For something, you could make an argument that it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that goes to show it's a lot of what makes laws is up to the enforcement. The cops have, you know, I mean, they're not accountable by any, you know, other sort of institution. They are the legal apparatus. You know, I mean, I think I basically said everything I could there.
Yeah. Another positive of her record is a program she successfully pushed for called Back on Track. And, you know, this is very, very interestingly contradictive to, you know, some like her enforcement of drug policies. So like Back on Track was a program that was mentioned in that Jacobin article that I sent to all of you. And I think it was like, I remember reading it in a Vox article as well, in which, you know, first-time drug offenders, and that also includes drug dealers as well as drug users and possessors, you know, like first-time offenders, instead of being given jail time, they would be given a high school diploma and a job, like, you know, access to like a high school diploma and a job, which is definitely that's definitely a plus.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good switch.
Yeah.
I will give her that, and I
Yeah.
will give her changing her views on death penalty
Yeah.
and marijuana use. But the thing is, I feel that she was gonna. Sorry, what was that?
Has she changed her views on marijuana use?
I think in
Yeah,
recent
she
years
did.
she
She's
has.
for legalization now.
Okay.
Yeah, she's for legalization now.
Whether
the
that's
thing
like a
is-
political move, you know,
That's
is up for
something, I mean-
discussion.
Yeah, it's a political move.
I know that
because
Joe
of-
Biden doesn't support it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing
I thought you
is,
might have been high when you said it.
changed her views. Yeah, she changed her views long after this was okay, literally in a proposition by her state approving it.
Yeah.
And then changed her view on death penalty. All of a sudden, when she's in the Senate and 2020 elections about to come up,
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of seems coincidental.
It's all very performative, you know, like she supports, you know, popular policies like Medicare for all when it suits her, and then, you know, she waffles when
Yeah.
her feet are really held to the fire.
Yeah, like I
Definitely.
think at one point she actually, like, I think her, like, looking at like the transition between supporting Medicare for all and not supporting Medicare for all, I think there was an actual like belief in it at one point. It's just that she started getting shit from wealthy donors.
I mean, that could be whether
I don't
she's
know.
genuine in her support for it or not doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah,
You know,
It's
must
like
not have
either
been very
support it or
genuine
you
if she
don't.
waffled so easily.
yeah. But
And I mean, you
oh,
mentioned,
yeah.
like you mentioned, that she might have been the front runner for like a split second.
Yeah.
You'll recall when Elizabeth Warren was the front runner for a split second, that was when she supported Medicare for all, and then when she backed off on it, she fell in the
Yeah.
hole. The same thing happened with Kamala Harris.
Yeah. What in the case of Elizabeth Warren, it wasn't because, like, I mean, she eventually did start to backtrack. Not she didn't backtrack on the policy itself. It's just her rollout of the plan, and also like her strategy. She announced her strategy for fighting for it, which showed some people that she like wasn't really serious about it, because like
Yeah,
her,
I mean, that to me
yeah.
amounts to a backtrack.
yeah,
But
but like
it-
not so much on the
it's
policy
backtrack,
itself,
yeah.
rather than just like her strategy
Yeah, but
is
I
just
think
bad.
many candidates did say they were for Medicare for all because, like, it was popular to say that, but then
Mhm.
probably didn't mean what they said.
Yeah,
And when it caught up to him, just like you said, backtrack. Because in reality, these things, if you don't have a proven record of fighting for these things before necessarily they're popular politically,
yeah,
I really can't trust you as a candidate.
yeah, absolutely.
Because it kind of really gives me an idea like you're just doing this for political clout rather than you actually caring about the issue. Like if you
Yeah.
did, where's your legislative record or anything you did prior to that? Prove that
Yeah, one thing I was
rather
going to
than
point
just
out.
automatically
Sorry.
turn your position when it's convenient.
I think that pretty much sums up Kamala Harris's political career. Is she does what she does to gain clout, whether it's with the public or with the people who fund her campaigns.
Yeah.
Definitely.
One thing I was going to say about like her, like, you know, she changed, you know, her position on marijuana at a convenient moment. It was like when Hillary Clinton finally came out in favor of gay marriage in 2015. So it was like at that point, it was already pretty universally accepted.
Mhm.
I mean, like in 2015 was the year, like,
That was when the
became
Supreme Court,
universally, legal. But at that point, it was just like, yeah, of course, like people can get married, no matter what. And it's like, it's a civil liberty thing. So another positive, and I think this is definitely great. She she actively opposed California's three strikes law. So like what that was is that, if you commit a felony, doesn't matter if it was violent or non-violent. Like if you commit three felonies, if you're convicted three times, you could be sentenced to life in prison, no matter the nature of that third felony. So, she started requiring her San Francisco DA office to really look into, to really look into whether or not like the third felony, like in the case of a third felony with any potential like perpetrator, in the case of that third felony, like she required them to look into whether or not it was violent. And if it was violent, then yeah, like you do like maybe the sentence to life thing. But if it wasn't, but like if it was just a drug offense, then you wouldn't get 25 to life.
Mhm.
So that's definitely a plus.
Yeah, but the thing
just as like a
more
side
so,
comment. Okay.
like the bigger issue is not necessarily a three strikes law, is why people are going back to prison after they get out. And
Yeah.
it really has to do with how many of your opportunities are limited after you have a felony stamp of your record. So
Yeah.
it's kind of harder for people to get jobs, vote, or even do basic things. Get a place when you're just getting out and you want to start a new life. Because most people are not in prison, contrary to like Hollywood, are not in gangs. Like they're not in organized crime necessarily. They're kind of like individuals.
Yeah. So like, yeah, you could definitely say that, Kamala Harris's support, like, or not support, but like opposition to the three strikes law, that's definitely a plus because, you don't want people to get locked up for life after like a third marijuana charge. But yeah, like that it is although it is good, it is very surface level. So like it doesn't get to the heart of why people end up going back to jail.
Right.
And
California was the only state to have a three strikes law.
Really?
I think it's point out. Yeah, the only state.
I did not know that. But,
I mean, it's a pretty harsh policy.
Yeah.
If you commit, a major offense, major felony, if you commit, two more that are minor, that you get life in prison. I mean, that's pretty barbaric.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's kind of like when I learned that, Virginia, like, with the exception of Florida, and like, I mean, Florida through a referendum overturned this, like, but Virginia was like the only state left that, didn't give back people's voting rights after prison, unless, like the governor pardoned them. And that's something that like our governor, Ralph Northam, has been working on. And that's
So I just pulled up the Jacobin article just to make sure I was right. Yeah. The California's three strikes law was the only one in the country which imposed life sentences after a third strike if it was a minor felony.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be as accurate as I could.
All right. So I think we went into a record with pretty good detail. We tried to be as objective as possible. I think. I mean, like, overall, her record is not great.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing about her Senate thing. This is very recent. She worked with Bernie Sanders and others like Ed Markey from Massachusetts to implement a $2,000 temporary UBI. Like she's a big advocate for that. So like that could mean potential promising things in a Biden administration going forward, because I'm pretty sure that this pandemic won't be over by the time, like if Joe Biden were elected, and I'm sure it won't be over by the time he's in office. But yeah, that's definitely a plus. But anyway, like now let's get to how she contributes to the Biden campaign, because there are some people who say that she won't really affect the outcome like of the election. Whether or not someone agrees with that. Let's talk about it as if it does. So the first thing that people were talking about is like she's gonna be debating Mike Pence. Typically, the vice presidential debate does not really have any outcome.
Right.
It does not have an effect on the outcome of the result of the race, and that certainly was the case in 2016. I tried watching the the vice presidential debate in 2016 with Tim Kaine and Mike Pence. And keep in mind, like back then, I was pretty fond of Tim Kaine, but like it was basically just them like fighting like and just talking over each other, and it was just like we can't watch this. Like this is terrible.
Yeah. There was a lot of clips on both sides. I think they tried to use like Tim Kaine, like a tweet said like, "Oh, Senator Tim Kaine interrupted Mike Pence like 84 times," like stuff
Mike
like
Pence
that.
probably interrupted him 84 times. It was just talking over each other.
Yeah, I will say though, I think Kamala Harris will help Biden's campaign more than Tim Kaine helped Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Absolutely, Tim Kaine is just boring. Like he's
Right.
unexciting. He's uninspiring. It was.
I don't really know why she chose Tim Kaine, except that he's from Virginia, which is a swing state. That's
Virginia is not a swing state anymore. I think it's pretty solidly blue.
Okay, I thought it was
Yeah,
still.
we're pretty solid blue now.
All right,
It's
I
been
thought it was
voting-
still considered.
It's
a
just
swing
you are right in a sense, but you have to go down to like places like Danville, Virginia,
state.
and like
Yeah.
go near like the corner of Virginia near Tennessee.
Yeah,
It's like where it's really bright red.
Right. Well, it's
Like
all
it is bright
super
red.
blue up north. You could also argue near DC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like in Central Virginia, like Charlottesville is like a very liberal community. So liberal it actually went to
That's
Bernie
true.
Sanders during Super Tuesday. Even
Yeah,
though
but if you,
Biden
like-
overwhelmingly
yeah.
beat Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if like you look out outside of Virginia, maybe go to Fluvanna and stuff, that's where you'll see a lot of more red areas.
Yeah. But so yeah, I do think Kamala Harris will be much better than Tim Kaine. Like I think overall on policy, she like even though she's still more progressive, even though like she's still pretty centrist than Tim Kaine. By the way, Tim Kaine also voted against and Mark Warner too voted against that 10% military cut. But overall, I do think Kamala Harris, like she has shown like in the primary process that she has the capability to be a real force to be reckoned with on the debate stage. It just really matters on like the kind of issues she brings up, because we all remember that pathetic moment in which she tried to like, I don't know, get Elizabeth Warren, like saying like
Right.
it's like I want you to join me in calling for the president to be banned from Twitter. It's just like this is the thing you're gonna outleft everyone else on. Like that's pathetic. I'm sorry.
And that's a good example of how most of what she says, I think, is performative, because she put like as much passion behind that call out of Elizabeth Warren as she did when she called out Joe Biden on busing. And there's obviously a disparity of importance between those two issues.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and like
The thing is like banning someone on Twitter is like like banning someone on Twitter is like very superficial. Like it does nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
He's just gonna find. You don't think he's gonna find another way of telling
No.
everybody in America?
And anything the president says is by definition newsworthy. If he's not going to get it out on tweet, he's going to get it out on Instagram or Facebook. And if not any of those, he could be doing
Or
it.
he'll make
like
his
from
own
the-
presidential social media or something. Or
Yeah.
he'd
Well,
have
yeah,
Or
that's
some-
Fox News.
Like,
Yeah. Like he'll do it in interviews. He could do it in press briefings.
Exactly.
He can do it from the Rose Garden.
I remember
Yep.
he can do something now where the White House can send out a text to every single person in America.
Oh yeah, the presidential like alert
You would do
system.
that.
I remember that from
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
Or a couple years ago when
Mhm.
that.
It hasn't really. It's only been used once for a test, as far as
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, they're like the president. Yeah, I remember I was sitting in driver's ed, and everyone got that text. And we're like, what the hell?
So I had like 218 or some weird time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was in class when that happened.
yeah. So yeah, that
Remember
was a couple
everyone-
years ago. That was just last
Everyone's
year.
at the same time. It's funny.
Yeah, like especially like like the ones like who keep their phone in their back pocket, just like hearing this multiple seats vibrate at the same time, like what the
Yeah,
hell's going on?
every phone in the class went off at once. It was hilarious.
Yeah, hold on, I got something now. Oh, it's an email. Yeah, never mind. Sorry. That was rude of me. I'm sorry. But but so like main point is like, Kamala Harris, like she has shown that she can be like she can be a force to be reckoned with on the debate stage. She just really knows how to pick her. She just needs to know how to pick and choose her issues a little bit better. As far as like, like people have praised her fundraising prowess, and that's really like, it depends on what you mean by that. Like, is she good like Bernie Sanders, in which like he was a force to be reckoned with in the money race, because like he was so good at racking up like small donations to the point where like he outraised everybody by a mile, because like people were just that excited for him, it seemed. But then you can talk about like the Nancy Pelosi types, like, oh, she's a real fundraising powerhouse. It's like, but she's not racking up small donations.
She's racking up corporate donations.
Yeah. And like it's very, if you look at like the average donation for Bernie Sanders versus like the average donation to like Pete Buttigieg, like who was like he was the corporate sweetheart for a while. So like the difference between like the average donations between those two candidates are like very, very different. So like, I don't know, like in that sense, like that can be a help. But then again, Hillary Clinton had twice the amount of money as Trump did, in going into the 2016 race. Like she spent up to like $1 billion on her campaign, and Trump won. So, like, as we all know. So like, as far as fundraising, that does have the potential to be helpful. Like with fundraising, you do like have like, there's a whole lot of great things you can do with a lot of money, like going to your campaign.
I don't think it'll be soon forgotten how Michael Bloomberg threw, as much money as he did on his campaign and got almost nowhere. So it's not just throwing money at.
Let's talk about definitely your campaign history, like your history as mayor, governor, whatever you did in the past, definitely has an impact on how you'll perform in a presidential election.
Yeah, money is a huge factor, but it's not the only one. You do have to have some brains.
In my mind, fundraising doesn't really mean anything unless if everyone took small donations, just small donations. You could really measure, like, that could basically be another form of polling, like who is raising the most money, like if it was just small donations, because that really does show like how enthusiastic people are about you. Because like, I'll vote for Biden, but I'm not enthusiastic enough about him. I don't believe in his message enough to actually donate to him or even like knock on doors for him. So like, and that brings us to another thing. Kamala Harris, unlike Joe Biden, actually does have a cult following in a way, like very similar to like, how Bernie Sanders has like his, his Bernie bro army or whatever. Warren has like the Warrencrats. Joe Biden doesn't really have any of that enthusiasm that those other candidates had. So Kamala Harris really does bring that kind of energy. And that's a good thing. Like if Joe Biden wants to win. But then again, Joe Biden coasted through the primary pretty easily. After South Carolina, despite not having that enthusiasm.
I mean, I know for me, when I heard that Kamala Harris was chosen as his VP pick, I had before come to the decision that I would just suck it up and vote for Joe Biden. And now I'm seriously reconsidering. And that maybe there are only like, 10 or 15 people out there like me who are seriously reconsidering after hearing the Kamala pick. But some
people are now more excited to vote for Biden now.
Well, right. So that's what I was going to say. One of the reasons he picked her might be because she's a much better speaker than he is, and her brain is actually functioning. Maybe he wants to send on the campaign trail for him.
And that gets us to another thing. Kamala has, the running mate in a presidential election is basically that second face of the campaign. They're on the ticket. Like, their names are on the ticket. So it's like she really has that opportunity to like keep Biden shut up in his basement, and that's what's really needed if he wants to win, especially as of recent with his latest pretty bad that we talked about at length last time. So Kamala is in the position to really become like the primary face of the campaign, because it's very likely that she will be president too. And if Biden has said he's going to retire after one term, and then Kamala Harris is going to be the one running. And then, like there's more than likely definitely going to be like a progressive primary challenger. I think AOC will be old enough to run for president at that point.
Will she? How old
Well,
is
she's like 30 now. So she'll be 30, maybe
yeah, so she won't be-
35.
She'll be like, maybe like if by the time like she starts her campaign, she'll still be like 34. But by the time that she is
Yeah, but don't you have to be like 40 something, like 45?
You have to be 35.
Or,
It's in the
35.
Constitution, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And back then, I guess like it was old, like when they wrote it.
Yeah.
40 was like life expectancy. But
I don't think that's true.
I don't.
I mean, if you think about like the founding fathers lived to like their 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
some of them, yeah.
So,
But like
yeah.
the average life expectancy of like the average person was like,
Of course, because they
40,
were
50.
like
I think
very
that's
rich.
several million years back when the life expectancy was about 40.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not too familiar with the history.
Socrates famously was executed at the age of 70. I mean, people were living, normal lifespans for thousands of years.
Yeah, it just depends on your like quality of life, like
Mm-hmm.
air quality, access to like
definitely.
food,
Yeah.
etc. stuff.
Yeah. As far as like, Kamala was like, unlike Tim Kaine, was I think Biden's half-assed attempt at actually trying to reach out to the left, whereas like Tim Kaine was a clear, fuck the left. Like I'm going hard center. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, B for effort? I don't know.
Maybe C+.
Yeah, but the thing is,
C+,
I feel
B
Kamala is more
maybe.
moderate than like an attempt to reach out to the left. I feel like they're trying to reach out to that.
Well, like,
Biden
Biden tries to like
the
Biden
so-called
realizes
independent base, like the so-called independent base, but like, and then also some conservative voters that are just fed up with Trump.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, like, oh damn, what was I gonna say? Well, like the thing is, like, Biden wanted someone who was more or less ideologically aligned to him, but I think it was obvious he was trying to go for someone who was more left than him, which I mean isn't hard because he's conservative even for an American Democrat.
Yeah, definitely.
He was the conservative Democrat in the Senate. I think for most of the time he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like an old school Democrat.
I mean, he was basically a Dixiecrat for a time.
Right.
Pretty egregious. But I don't think it can be understated that a big reason Kamala Harris was chosen is that she's a woman of color. Not be, the
Of course, because they want to. I mean, it's a good thing to have a person of color on as a vice president.
Yeah.
But the thing is, her record really doesn't show that she cares about like the black community, Hispanic
it seems to
community.
indicate the opposite.
Yeah, it's like her policies drastically affect those communities.
Yeah. And like when we say that, and we were going to preface with this just like so people had the context, like none of these criticisms that we're making of Kamala Harris are out of bigotry. Like they're
it's
like
not
legitimate like substantive criticisms of her record.
It's
and like
not it's not I'm sorry, I want to clarify. It's not because like I had to explain earlier, that's because she's biracial and can't have Indian or African heritage. It's just that one side's being politicized for an election.
Yeah.
But it's like like no substance to it. It's symbolism, but there's nothing to help the masses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also like with our critiques, we're not trying to diminish like, the historical importance of if she were to be elected vice president. It is very important that she would be the first, not just woman on, to be elected on a presidential ticket, but like the first black woman to be elected on a presidential ticket. And it was like, that is important. But I mean, like compared to like the policy, I mean, it's relatively benign, I would say. I mean, like, you know what I mean?
Right. Like it was important that Obama was the first black president, but you can see substantive critiques about, what real impact he had on the black community. A lot of people would argue he didn't have very much of one.
And it's frustrating to like when you're trying to criticize Kamala Harris, because like not like any criticism is just assume that you're doing it from a conservative perspective, and it's also frustrating because the attacks that the GOP have launched against Kamala Harris have absolutely just been horrific.
Yeah,
Using basically
based in
you
yeah,
wouldn't
like if
call
you
a man nasty. You're like just a nasty man. Like when people typically hear nasty man, they think it's some sort of sexual thing.
True, I didn't even think of that.
yeah. Well, he has called like men and women nasty, but like his more attacks are kind of like to rile up his base. They have a different meaning.
When you call a woman nasty, it sets off certain alarm bells. You know,
like
certain people who understand.
Sexist.
It's what's like I think dog whistle is the word for it. You know, certain people
Yeah.
understand what's actually being said.
Yeah, and also like even the critiques of Kamala Harris from the GOP that are trying to delve more into the policy things, like they're absolute bullshit. You know, like I shared that Charlie Kirk tweet on my Instagram, you know, saying that, you know, Kamala Harris is a Marxist. That's absolute bullshit. And,
I wish you.
Then one
I
called her
wish she was a
communist.
Marxist. That would be much more preferable.
I would
to what
vote
she
for a
really
far
is.
left ticket. That all of the all of the anti-Kamala Biden ads are like they're embracing a far left agenda. I would vote for them in a heartbeat if they were embracing
Yeah,
a
we wish.
back
Yeah,
as
we
they-
wouldn't be criticizing her if she had a far left agenda.
Yeah,
exactly.
Be supporting her.
The Trump War Room tweeted out, you know, like it was a picture of like the Trojan horse. It's like Joe Biden is the Trojan horse for the radical left. It's like, we wish. Like,
He, you know, maybe if Bernie Sanders had played his cards a little bit better, you know, at the end
yeah,
of
like maybe he, yeah.
it could have been a bit of a
It's not
critical-
necessarily like we would be like saying, oh, we'll only vote for Biden if he gives us anything we like, gives us everything we ask for, non-negotiable. I mean, there's probably a couple people who are like that, but like most people on the left are reasonable enough to say, okay, well, just give us like one or two policy concessions, and we'll vote for you. We'll vote for you. It's just like, and it's frustrating that Bernie
Just
did
occurred
not
to me that
take advantage of that opportunity.
Mhm. It just occurred to me that the Trojan horse should really be called a Greek horse if we want to be true to the mythology. But whatever.
Yeah, like it was made by the Greeks. I don't know, but then again, it was a gift to the Trojans. Like it was presented as a gift.
yeah.
So like when you give something,
Right.
it becomes theirs. I don't know. Little bit of a side discussion about
Doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Greek mythology.